resistance.
What's up, everyone? This is the Tin Man with the Worldwide Resistance Network. If you are watching this, you are the resistance. And welcome to Tin Man TV. Yes, everyone, this is Tin Man TV. I, of course, am your host, Chris Sheldon, the Tin Man, with the Worldwide Resistance Network, coming to you today on this Wednesday morning, March 11th, 2026. And this, of course, is the infamous Nut Monster Blue, the fictitious product that doesn't actually exist because we're not paid for by any sponsors or APAC or any of that nonsense. We are of the people, by the people, for the people. So if you like this broadcast, be sure to check out our online store at REALTWWRN.printify.me for tons of great merch. And even if that's not your thing, it costs nothing to share the live feeds and to hit that like and subscribe button on all our social medias, X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook. Hit that notification bell on YouTube to fuck up YouTube's algorithm and be notified anytime we go live. And as always, feel free to engage in the conversation because this is one of the only political podcasts, if not the only political podcast network that includes you in the conversation. Most radio and podcast hosts will throw out a hotline number to have you call in, and they'll have maybe 3 or 4 callers for a small segment of their show. We don't do that shit here. Here at the Worldwide Resistance Network, this is of the people, by the people, for the people. So you're as much part of the show as I am. So if you have any thoughts, opinions, information, whatever, feel free to share it in the comment section and engage in the conversation. I do read the comments on air and I do respond in real time. So feel free to engage, ladies and gentlemen. The comments are enabled. And the topic for today is Trump says that the conflict in Iran could be coming to a close. He said this yesterday, but has not given any specifics as to when it might end. However, there's been some major problems. One of the reasons why I start this podcast a little bit late is because I want to try to get some InfoWars headlines and at least get an idea of what Jones is going to be covering, because that man doesn't miss a beat. So even though our show starts around the same time that his does, I do want to at least try to get the headlines, especially as it pertains to topics like this, because you never know what's going to pop up at the last minute. So I want to make sure that I have the most up-to-date information possible and explore the angles that aren't necessarily being covered. But here is the InfoWars post for the Alex Jones show today. World in crisis, live Wednesday broadcast. Iran doubles down by launching most intense missile attacks yet and strikes more ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump admin hits panic button, desperately looking for off-ramp after major miscalculation. Seeks to hit the panic button after major miscalculation. Just going to say it. In fact, I'm not even going to say it. I'm just going to push the button. Wow. So, yeah. Major miscalculations Indeed, with Iranian missile strikes coming in. Yeah, I mean, Reverend and I were talking about it the other night when I joined in on his podcast. That Trump could seize this opportunity with the new leader of Iran being put into power. He could use this as a way of going, okay, we've got a new leadership. We can back off this military offensive now. He could have talks with this new military leader and then tell the American people in the world, it's like, okay, I give this guy the seal of approval. We're backing off our military strikes. And then the next day, you hear the announcement that the war, as it's commonly being referred to, is coming to a close. And now things intensify with Iran attacking the port of Hormuz. Now, it's not just that. There's other issues as well. You know, you look at the economic issues that have really impacted our country and even the world with this conflict, specifically in oil prices, which is generally where economic crisis starts. Back in the early 2000s, during the war on terror, as it's commonly called, gas prices soared during the economic, what was supposed to be an economic boom and the housing boom, but where they were building houses, they didn't build businesses, so people were buying houses in these valley areas and having to commute to work in bigger cities. And with gas prices soared, that just kind of tanked everything. And we're expecting to see a lot of the same happening in the here and now with oil prices surging the way they are. In fact, we have an article here. Saudi Aramco CEO issues stark warning. Iran war could bring catastrophic shock to global oil. That let's go ahead and just play the 2-minute article on that.
International Energy Agency did approve its largest ever release of emergency oil reserves. IEA member states are going to release 400 million barrels. Governments trying to mitigate the spike that we've seen in oil prices. It was reported upon earlier this morning that it could be 300 to 400 million. Now we have that confirmation. Yahoo Finance's Jay Conley has been tracking all of the developments very closely that have been going on. Okay, so largest release ever. Across a number of different countries.
And more than double what you saw released in 2022 after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which was about 180 million barrels. So this is a massive, massive release. That said, we are still going to be far below all the barrels that have taken off the market.
Okay, so let's do a little math then. How much has that decrease been? Because oil can't get out of the Strait of Hormuz.
So that's pegged, depending on where you look, around 18 million, 20 million barrels per day.
Per day.
Per day.
And so now we're talking about this 400 million being released.
If you do the math, it's roughly 2 million barrels per day if you assume kind of a normal distribution schedule.
And this is going to happen over time. They don't just like release it all.
No, this is not 400 million barrels hitting the market tomorrow morning. This is usually a, call it 6-month kind of rollout where the member countries will slowly release from their reserves and do that at a steady pace, partially so that you don't flood the market.
Right. Okay. So when we're looking at oil prices in reaction to this, you know, normally your brain says, okay, more supply, that means prices are going to come down a little bit. And yet that is not what I mean, part of it is this was perhaps anticipated.
Some of it's priced in.
Some of it's priced in. But at the same time, we're getting these headlines. This morning, we're still getting headlines that there are attacks on ships.
3 more this morning.
In the Strait of Hormuz. So that then maybe seems like, I mean, but the swings have been so wild anyway from day to day, they don't necessarily make sense depending on what the actual headlines are.
Yeah, I think that's right. And traders are also looking at this from both sides. Sure, there's more oil coming on. You're also not getting a fix for the flows. That's what really you need to watch here. Can oil globally move? It's great that there's going to be another 400 million barrels in the market. That will help somewhat. It will bring prices down somewhat. But the main variable here is still the blockage out of the Persian Gulf. If you cannot get that oil onto a tanker and get it out safely through the Strait, you're still going to be sitting at a drawback. And even now you see Saudi Arabia trying to push some of its oil through pipelines to the east-west, to the Red Sea. It's still not enough to compensate for what is the single biggest choke point in the world for oil.
Yeah. All right, Jake, thank you very much. I know that you will be keeping very busy.
Thanks, Julie.
As you have been. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so the Strait of Hormuz is a big impact point for oil distribution. And with that strait being blocked off and subsequently being hit with military strikes, even though the U.S. is trying to seize control of the Iranian side of that strait, getting that oil on a tanker and getting it through the Strait of Hormuz so that oil distribution can resume is going to be tricky, to say the least, for the foreseeable future. Even with these oil reserves being brought in, it's still not going to fix the problem until the Strait of Hormuz is reopened. Now, a lot of people will argue, well, didn't we go to Venezuela and take control of their oil? Different regions have different types of oil for different types of things. And it also, a lot of it has to do with how the oil is refined. Venezuela refines their oil in a specific way for specific products. Think in terms like plastics, bathing products such as soaps, shampoos, or even if you want to just break it down to the most simplistic dummy terms, unleaded fuel versus diesel fuel. All right, so there's going to be varying product distributors that refine oil specifically for specific purposes. And a lot of that has to do with the area in which the oil is being mined, its richness, how much there is in contrast to another area. There's a lot of variables that go into play there. And though Venezuela has a lot of oil, and even the United States has a lot of oil, there's still those other variables. Now, we could argue that we could open up and use more of our own oil, such as out of Texas, Alaska, and so forth. But again, pipelines, refineries, distribution, that takes a lot of finagling. And if you're going to upscale and say, make the United States the biggest distributor of oil in the world, that's not a bad business move in the long run, but in the short term, it's not going to solve the immediate problem. What would need to happen is, again, this conflict with Iran needs to be brought to an end, or at least to the point where the Strait of Hormuz is not impacted. Something needs to be done there to where the Strait of Hormuz is not obstructed and being impacted. And then if the United States wanted to become the major player in the oil game, they in theory could. But that's going to be years down the line. So you would need the Strait of Hormuz open, business moving forward as usual, while the United States sets up for this market transition, for lack of a better term. And yeah, that could happen. But in the meantime, we are still faced with this crisis. So things either need to be brought to an end, or the Strait of Hormuz needs to be under complete United States military control until such time that the conflict can be resolved, at least in terms of oil distribution and economic factors, because this doesn't just affect the United States. It affects the majority of the world. China's being hit hard economically because of what's happening in Iran. Europe, the Western Front, Canada, America, the whole world is impacted by this in one way or another. It's not good economically. And with Israel having bombed the shit out of Iran's oil refineries and whatnot, and pretty much their oil business is completely destroyed at this point. And that has some short-term and long-term consequences, because in the short term, Israel's looking at this going, okay, we take out their oil, we take out their military capabilities, because let's face facts, all these systems got to use oil in one capacity or another. Remove oil from the equation, the machine stops working. The war machine stops running. So there is sound logic in that in the short term, but in the long term, again, you're hitting these oil refineries that aren't just for military purposes, but are for civilian and international trade. So you're hurting the international market. You're hurting the civilian populace of Iran, as well as other countries who are immediately affected by this, with all of which is a big fucking no-no, which is why Saddam Hussein got so much shit back during the Gulf War when he torched his oil wells. Hey, for those of you who may not remember, look it up on YouTube. Saddam Hussein, during the Gulf War, torched his oil wells. You had fire shooting up into the sky like it was a geyser. It was nuts. Look up those videos. Go to YouTube, type in Saddam Hussein lights oil on fire in the 90s. It's fucking nuts. But effectively, even though the oil's not presently on fire, in many regards, it's going to take years to rebuild those systems. So it's going to be years before Iran can get their oil industry up and running again. Even if the conflict ended today, Iranian oil, which is one of their biggest economic holds, if that would be the appropriate term, primarily the country of Iran is dependent on their oil distribution. The majority of the Iranian economy depends on their oil distribution. That is their claim to fame. That is their key resource of distribution. Now, with these mines and refineries being knocked out, that knocks them out of the economic game and pretty much cripples the country. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, in the terms of war and combat, if you want to knock out the regime and have regime change, or even just take over the country as a whole, it's like, what's yours is mine now. I've conquered your nation, blah, blah, blah. Somebody's still got to rebuild that shit. Otherwise, the economy for that region is going to remain. It just doesn't make sense in the long term. It's a long-term loss for a short-term gain is what it is. And it was insanely hasty and stupid. Now, moving forward, another article here. Trump keeps telling America he's winning in Iran, but he's less clear in explaining how the war ends. And this comes from AP. Washington AP facing jittery global markets and dropping poll numbers since launching a war with Iran. President Donald Trump has cycled from calls for unconditional surrender to sounding amenable to an amenable to an end state in which Iran trades one hardline Ayatollah for another. Shifting comments from the Republican president and his top aides are aiding in the precautiousness of the 12-day-old conflict, which is impacting nearly every corner of the Middle East and causing economic tremors around the globe, blah, blah, blah. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on Tuesday told reporters that it was up to Trump whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end of the war. Trump, during the course of one speech at a House Republican gathering Monday, went from calling the war a short-term excursion that could end soon to proclaiming, "We haven't won enough." The vacation has fueled criticism from those who say Trump lacks a clear goal. They don't have a plan, said Mark Kelly. The RS told reporters they have no timeline, and because of that, they have no exit strategy. Now, it just goes on from there. But again, it goes without saying. They have no timeline and no exit strategy. Again, so how could you say this conflict is coming to an end if you have no timeline and no exit strategy? Again, the best way to actually go about this is for Trump to have at least a phone call meeting, even if it's just a singular phone call meeting with the new Ayatollah of Iran, feel him out, come to an understanding with each other, give the guy his seal of approval, and then just start pulling back. That's really the only way I can see this effectively coming to an end in a timely manner. Now, you have another problem here. And that is, I'm going to say it, Israel. Now, it's no secret that Israel has their hands in everything. The media is Jewish owned. Our banking system, the Federal Reserve, was set up by the Rothschilds and owned by them. They have infiltrated every level of our government from the top to the bottom. And with the Epstein debacle, we know that pretty much our government is subservient to the will of Israel. And it is well understood that the Israeli population cannot stand Benjamin Netanyahu. He is a war criminal who is fighting to maintain his power so that he cannot be criminally prosecuted. Because so long as there's conflict in the Middle East, he can remain in power, which gives him effective immunity from prosecution for his previous war crimes. So this man does not want to give up power, because if he does, he goes from living a very cush life to, you gonna eat that cornbread? Yeah. It's not going to be a fun day for Benjamin Netanyahu. And before people decide to jump my shit and crawl up my ass and out my mouth with the whole, you need to bless Israel because of the Abrahamic covenant, as it says in Genesis, blah, blah, blah. First of all, it doesn't say that. Second of all, even if it does, we're talking about blessing the people of Israel. You're talking about supporting the people of Israel, not the criminals who are making the lives of Israelis and other people miserable. Okay. Oh, Jeffrey Epstein was Jewish. Do we say we've got to bless this guy and support him, even though he was a satanic pedophile, human trafficker, engaged in not only rape of children, but unlawful abortions, human experimentation, bloodletting, satanic rituals, blood drinking, Pizzagate, the whole 9 yards. The list goes on and on of the atrocities. Are we saying that because of the Abrahamic covenant, we have to tongue punch Jeffrey Epstein's fart box? I think not. Are we saying that we have to support a small percentage of Zionist criminals who aren't even of the Abrahamic descent? They are Chabad Jews, meaning European converts to Judaism, having no genetic ties to Judah or any of the 12 tribes of Israel or those bloodlines? Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay. Or can we say that if we are going to support the Jews, let's support the Jewish community and the Israeli community, especially against people who are making the lives of the Jewish and Israeli community a living fucking nightmare by way of these criminal behaviors that these people hide behind Judaism and anti-Semitism, using that as the human shield to deflect away from their criminal behavior and make the lives of the Jewish people a living hell. That's what happened in World War II, is a handful of people made life for the people of Germany and the surrounding areas a living hell because they infiltrated the media, they infiltrated the government, they infiltrated the banking systems, and they brought the country to its fucking knees. And subsequently resulted in pushback that wound up getting, at least according to what's written in history, the death of 6 million innocent Jewish people because of a small handful of assholes who were pretending to be Jews so that they could hide behind anti-Semitism and push that narrative. And it's the same goddamn thing now. So if you're going to support the Jewish community, support the Jewish community that is being negatively impacted by people who are hiding behind anti-Semitism in order to get away with criminal activity that is making the lives hard for the Jewish people and everybody else around the planet. Okay? Let's not mince words on that. I could do a whole fucking podcast on this topic alone. Okay? But the fact of the matter is, Bibi Netanyahu in terms of what's going on right now, is not going to want to step down from power. If he does, he goes to jail. And it's going to be going from his cush little lifestyle to, no, Baba, I'm bilingual. There's a difference. No more grilled cheese. No more lactose. Gracias. No, for those of you who don't get that reference, watch next Friday with Ice Cube. Fucking funny. You'll get the joke. You're like, oh, lactose, busy. No more lactose. I don't like lactose. So yeah, the dude's not going to want to go to jail. He's not going to want to step down from power because if he does, he's going to jail, if for no other reason. And that's apart from the fact that it has been openly declared by the Israeli government that they pretty much want to take over the entire Middle East. Okay, so even if Trump backs down from this, Israel is not going to be happy about it. The Israeli government is not going to be happy about this. And can we really argue at this point, from a man who is so desperate to stay out of jail and continue to push this occupational agenda to essentially take over the entire Middle East, can we really argue that this person is not going to pull out all the stops and do whatever he can to keep this conflict going or to reignite the conflict, at least for no other reason than he doesn't want to go to jail? So at which point, yes, we as the United States need to pull out of this conflict. But at the same time, we need to address this problem with the Israeli government and Benjamin Netanyahu and nip that situation in the bud. And I can't say that I have a definitive answer to that. I mean, there's many ideas that could be had in there. You may have to look at, maybe military strikes against Israel, their military bases, and government facilities. Maybe, hopefully not, but, hopefully there could be a diplomatic solution to this. But this is a problem that needs to be addressed, and it's going to have to be addressed. Otherwise, the conflict's not either going to continue or it's going to be reignited almost immediately for the sake of the as mentioned variables. So Trump needs to take a step back and really look at the situation and what needs to be done here. Because he already knows that Netanyahu played him for a fucking sap. Okay, he already knows that Bibi Netanyahu sees Trump as his bitch. Now, Jones will sit there and say that it's not Trump that's at fault here. It's Bibi Netanyahu in conjunction with people like Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, Lindsey Graham, and others in his ear, bullshitting him, schmoozing him, and giving him bad intel. Which may be true to a point, but at what point do you hold the president accountable and go, okay, how many times does somebody have to sit there and tell you that your Diet Coke is chocolate milk before you tell that person to shut the fuck up and get out of your face and don't come back? Like, seriously, how many times do these people have to feed the man bad intel before the man goes, okay, I obviously can't trust a word that comes out of your mouth. Get the fuck away from me. I'm not listening to another thing you say. Okay, just go. You're fired. Get out. You're gone. Fuck off. Especially in regards to the Three Stooges. Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, and fucking Lindsey Graham. Those three are a fucking pain. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. We've got some new merch that I just launched, and I'm just absolutely fucking savage about it. I am so excited to drop these lines. So let me show you what we've got here. We got some goodies for you. Check it out. We've got 3 new shirts, I should say. All on sale for the low price of $19.99. That is marked down $3 from the low price of $22.99 of all other products. And I know that doesn't look like a big deal, but if you look at other sellers, they're charging way more for their shirts. I'm keeping most of my products at the bare minimum. We're barely making any money in terms of profits on this because I want to give you guys the best possible deals that I absolutely can. But these are marked down to low $19.99. It costs probably about $16 roughly to make these shirts. So after shipping and everything, you don't figure that we're going to be making a whole lot of money here. Okay. It's pennies on the dollar, if that. But look, we got these 4 shirts. Pretty much, I'm going to call this the 4 basic food groups. Yes, he's a frog. I know. I'll get to that in a minute. But we've got Marga oranges, Lindsay's graham crackers, toad blanch. And a lot of people say, well, that's not food. You ever had frog legs? Very good protein. And, of course, Spam Bundy. Again, all for the super low price of $19.99. You're really not going to see deals like this anywhere. You might find somebody who's got like maybe 1 shirt on sale for a low price. I got 4. And that's on top of all the other merch that we've got on the store for the low price of $22.99 for shirts, $38.95 for sweatshirts, hats $26.04, and just launched new cell phone cases and we made sure to make these available in every type of cell phone. So no matter what kind of phone you got, you can find the right case for your phone. No problem. $20.06 right off the top there. And we've also just launched the Shadow People insulated travel mug. I don't know where's my picture? I love my picture. Oh no! There it is. Okay. Got a black travel mug with the TINMAN Shadow People logo on it. Definitely great for travel, especially if you're commuting, have your morning coffee. Definitely kind of hard to travel and drive with these. We've also got shot glasses. I love these shot glasses. These are awesome shot glasses. And we've also got the bumper stickers for the low price of $7.87. So yeah, tons of great goodies all at the TINMAN store. And that's realtwwrn.printify.me. Go ahead and check that out now because this sale is not going to last long. I might just have this for two weeks maybe. And, these shirts won't be around forever because we're always going to have to make room for new and upcoming merchandise. So don't miss out on the food group collection. All at Real TWRN store. And also Trump Apologist Network, Truth is Louder Than Bullets, Charlie Kirk memorial shirt, the Epstein lemon penis shirt that was provided to us by Little Aaron, formerly of the Friday Dessert. Toilet Paper USA, Zionist butt plug. I stand with ICE shirts, ICE memorabilia shirts, the no strings counter protest to no king shirts. You definitely want to get those. I will probably actually wind up putting those on sale this week for $19.99 as well, given the no kings protest coming up. So be sure to get those so that you can attend your next no kings protest, as well again as other tons of great TWWRN merchandise, all at RealTWWRN.printify.me. And with that being said, let's move on with these issues. Yeah, we got our problem of food groups. I like to call these guys the Three Stooges. And I know there's a lot more people to it, but most of your key players, Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, and to a lesser extent, Lindsey Graham. And these are your two biggest problems, and especially Pam Bondi. Like, oh my God, the world hates that woman. But I got something for you guys. You got to see this. Like, I was even shocked by this. TMZ reports Pam Bondi was moved to a military base after receiving threats from cartel and people pissed about the Jeffrey Epstein case. Headline reads, Pam Bondi quietly moved to U.S. military base after threats. And again, this is TMZ. This is verified. This, unless TMZ is spouting some complete and utter bullshit, I'm going to have to take this at face value here. Now, can we really say it's a big surprise given what she's done with the Epstein files? And granted, Trump's a big part of that. And having her do what she did with the Epstein files and slow rolling it and trying to suppress it, because Trump made a deal with these globalists saying, okay, I won't nail your asses to a fucking cross, but you got to fucking back down and you got to roll over and play dead. You got to roll over and concede. They said they would, and then they didn't. They not only continued with the globalist agenda, but tried to spin it and implicate Trump in the files, saying that he's covering up because he's in the files, which, even though at this point it seems that he's pretty definitively not in the files in any legitimately incriminating fashion, he has implicated himself in the cover-up as an accessory after the fact, which is just as bad in my opinion, because, again, you look at the crimes of what's come out in these files. Now, Trump went after Epstein and reported him to the police and FBI when he was made aware of what Epstein was doing and the stunt he pulled at Mar-a-Lago and trying to recruit that, I think, 16-year-old girl who was at Mar-a-Lago at the time. I think she was interning there. And Trump found out about it, kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, banned him from Mar-a-Lago, and went to the police and FBI, and that's where this whole thing started in 2019. And I believe that the actual phone call and him being kicked out of Mar-a-Lago was actually in like 2011, 2012, somewhere in that ballpark. So for Trump to sit there and go from that to not wanting to prosecute these people for the same crimes, if not worse crimes, than what he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And with this continuously happening and this behavior with the Epstein, this constant behavior with the Epstein files and the conflict in Iran now, as instead of pulling back from Israel, like the American people have been telling Trump to do, and then completely undermining the Maha movement prior to the fact by signing that executive order that pretty much helps Bayer and Roundup, the whole thing with the cancer and everything, just because of its military applications. It's got the majority of the American people, especially those who voted for Trump, sitting there screaming,
"Why must you fail me so often?"
I mean, the American people, especially those who voted for Trump, are getting pretty pissed off here. So I'm honestly not surprised that Pam Bondi is getting death threats. I'm not condoning it, but at the same time, I can't say that I'm honestly surprised. Because this shit needs to stop. She blocked Kennedy on getting the fluoride out of the water. Kennedy was getting the fluoride out of the water. Everybody was excited. Everybody was happy about it. That was a huge fucking thing. And then Pam Bondi comes in and fucking cock blocks it because the big pharma lobbyists came to her with a whole shit ton of money. And she, like any gold digger, goes, "Yes, big pharma, I'll do whatever you say." They come to her with all this fucking money and say, "Hey, block Kennedy on this." She looks at the money bag and goes, "Yes, big pharma. Yes, daddy." Glurp, glurp, glurp. And it's the same thing with the Epstein files. "Yes, Daddy Trump. I'll slow roll the files. I'll suppress the information. I'll break the law. I'll go against the Congress of the United States. Now, I'll play like we're a part of some superpower that's exempt from the checks and balances of the United States government that the people put in place. Yeah, I'm more than happy to make you look like a complete ass. Yes, Daddy Trump, I'll play along." Gluck, gluck, gluck. So, yeah. Now you know why. Now y'all understand why I call her Spam Bundy. Because like spam, it's all fake bullshit coming from this chick. And I say Spam Bundy, not Spam Bondi, because she kind of reminds me of Ted Bundy. Yeah. Good looking person on the outside, you wouldn't think anything bad of him. But once you get past the frontal facade, pure fucking evil. So yeah, Spam Bundy. Yeah, and I'll die on that. So yeah. That's my little caveat there, and I'll talk about it all fucking day, but I can't say that. I can't openly advocate for violence. I try to push the idea of a peaceful renaissance in lieu of a violent revolution. But I do have to acknowledge that I understand why people are pissed off and why she would be getting death threats. And all that, because she's slow rolling everything. She's not pushing for prosecution. She's not doing the things she should be doing. Todd Blanche just killed the investigation into the auto pen thing. Like, seriously, I don't understand why Trump still has that asshole around. Yeah, I get he won the case of Mar-a-Lago, but everything he's done since has undermined the Trump administration. That's like one. If you have 100 games and you have one win and 99 losses with your team, maybe it's time to sit there and, do some trades and, get some new draft picks, for lack of a better term. Like, come on, dude. Clearly, Todd Blanche and Pam Bundy aren't good people doing the job. Yeah, Pam Bondi's a yes man, a yes woman. But Todd Blanche, he's on his own fucking program. And I'd say the same for fucking Lindsey Graham Cracker. Toad Blanche and Lindsey Graham Cracker are straight up on their own program. Spam Bondi is just a yes woman who goes and does whatever the money tells her. Okay? But at the end of the day, these people are undermining the administration of what it could be. And whether Trump's complacent in that or not, it seems to be definitive, but at the same time, still semi-open for debate. I mean, I try to see where Jones is trying to be optimistic on this. But at the same time, if we have an administration that says, if we have a president that says he listens to the American people, and the American people are telling you, hey, Caesar, these assholes are about to stab you in the fucking back. Your buddies are about to stab you in the back and kill you. And you ignore these people and you tell them, no, you're not MAGA. And then they stab you in the back. Then these people stab you in the back. These people that you can consider close friends stab you in the back, just like Caesar's friends did to him. I mean, come on. You see these people with the knife. You see their actions. You have yelled at them and cussed them out publicly. Seriously. Just get rid of them. Just get rid of them, man. Seriously, keeping them around, again, kind of implicates Trump in the idea that he's complicit in all of this. That it's not just people feeding him bad information, but that he's implicit in the whole thing. Whereas, if somebody was feeding me bad information consistently, I'd have no choice but to get these people away from me. It's like, look, I can't trust these people. They're feeding me bad intel. They're undermining everything. They gotta go. Hey, find a way to get them out of here. They gotta fucking go yesterday. And that's what should be happening. It shouldn't be yelling at them and then back to business as usual. Because it just makes the president of the United States look bad. It makes him look not only complacent, but a willing participant and implicated in what these people are doing. Like they're all part of this same club and just that's fucking the American people over and just laughing about it behind the scenes while going, we listen to the American people while they got their fingers crossed behind their back. Like, come on. And what's it done? I mean, yeah, we've got a few minor wins, but even far greater losses here. And again, Jones kind of made a great analogy on it. Yeah, you had a great punch bowl, but then you came in, dropped trow, and took a big fat shit right in the punch bowl. Ain't no good at that point. And I mean, you look at what's happened with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, she got ran out of office and was forced to resign because she was receiving death threats. And, she was a representative of Georgia. So I'm not surprised with this coming from Georgians because I've been to Georgia. We know it's primarily a democratically run state. Whether you want to admit it or not, it's primarily democratically run. And having been to Georgia myself, the greater Atlanta area, Conyers, Georgia, which is pretty much the Georgia equivalent of Compton, and having been to Compton myself as well as Conyers, Georgia, I can definitively make that distinction and that correlation. Okay, Conyers, Georgia is the Georgia equivalent of Compton. Okay, you don't like it, freaking do something about it. Clean up your act. But yeah, so Marjorie Taylor Greene was run out because of threats. I personally think she should have doubled down and stuck to her guns and fought harder for her principles. But that's me. But you know what? I can also understand that people only have so much fight in them, and at some point, everybody has their breaking point and can sit there and go, you know what, I gave it my all, and just know when to call it quits. And maybe that's what happened with Marjorie. I really like Marjorie Taylor Greene. She had a lot of ideas. She was putting forth a lot of good things. So I've got nothing against Marjorie Taylor Greene. I was misinformed about the situation at first, but I did promptly look into it and saw the situation for what it was. And I can't say that I have any caveats against Marjorie or that she resigned. I really wish she had stuck it out and pushed back a little harder. But, again, I can understand everybody has their limits, and sometimes you got to know when to fold. And maybe that was her time. But new developments in that sense, Marjorie has stepped down. Georgia takes first steps at replacing Taylor Greene election takeaways. President Donald Trump's dominance over the Republican Party was reaffirmed on Tuesday, March 10th, after his preferred candidate to replace former Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene took one step closer to filling the Make America Great matriarch shoes in Congress. Republican Clay Fuller, a former prosecutor, came in second among a field of more than a dozen candidates in Georgia's special election to replace Greene, who resigned from the U.S. House of Representatives in January after months of clashing with the president. Fuller overcame all the other GOP candidates for the seat, which stretched from Atlanta's northern suburb into the Peach State's mountainous Appalachia border with Tennessee. That's towards the Chattanooga area, for those of you who don't know. That's a little more east of southern middle Tennessee. But little geographical lesson, but hardly relevant. Okay. Trump's endorsement in early February helped Fuller, a 44-year-old retired Air National Guard member, stand out among other conservatives in the race who argued they were better suited to carry the torch. I think it is a reaffirmation that the voters here support the president and hear what he thinks about the people he wants to carry on his agenda. Fuller told USA Today in a one-on-one interview shortly after the results were announced. Obviously, with him weighing in on this race, it's important for him to have someone who is going to be a MAGA warrior on Capitol Hill. Now, the question is, will this person be MAGA, or will they be another backstabbing little shit that pretends to be MAGA and pretends to be Trump's friend, but effectively stabs him in the back every chance they get? And if so, what's Trump going to do about it? Because, I get that Pam Bondi wasn't Trump's top pick because of congressional approvals, but he didn't need to appoint Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche, that made no sense. Even just from a left versus right standpoint, Todd Blanche is a diehard Democrat. Your party is a Republican party. So do you really think that a loyalist Democrat is going to work in the best interest of the Republican Party? Huh? I'm sorry, but where does that make sense? Where do you think a Democrat is going to do what is in the interest of the Republican Party? That's like saying that's like saying I'm a Democrat. That would be like if Obama hired a Republican as the head of his DOJ and expected that Republican to act in his best interest. Like, come on, dude. Like, seriously. Like, for real, dude. It makes no fucking sense. Like, seriously. So, I have to remain skeptical, given Trump's track record and not so good picks as of late. I mean, I try to remain optimistic, and I would definitely agree with the consensus that we need to support the president of the United States. We need to get him to do the right thing. We need to put his feet to the fire and, push him to do the right things. Because if for no other reason, then because he is the president of the United States, regardless of whether he's Trump or Republican or Democrat, he is the sitting president. We need the sitting president to do the right thing, regardless of any other variables. So, yeah, I would firmly agree that we need to hold Trump's feet to the fire, and we need to support candidates that we know definitively are going to further the populist objective, for lack of a better term. I definitely would not agree with Nick Fuentes in going to vote Democrat just to illustrate a point and flex on the Republican Party. I think that's exactly what Democrats are counting on, and it's the same old play. That's always been the case. Oh, well, the Republicans did bad, so I'm going to vote Democrat this time around. Oh, well, it didn't work out with the Democrats, so I'm going to go back to voting Republican. And it's back and forth, 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 back and forth. Okay, it's a redundancy. It's the same old game, and I can understand where Nick Fuentes is upset and where he's coming from, but I can't say that I would agree with his determination and the conclusion that he's come to and wanting to vote for the Democratic Party to essentially spite the Republican Party. I would say that we need to double down and really push this administration and the Republican Party to get populist Republicans in, because right now we don't have a populist representation in the Democratic Party, really. We don't. We have a Democratic Party who pushes the narrative of the 1 to 10% of media pushed bullshit and completely ignores what the majority of their populace wants. In fact, the majority of the Democratic voters have said they want the SAFE Act passed. But Democrats on Capitol Hill continue to ignore this and continue to rail against it on this whole Trump bad, Orange man bad, so we must resist Trump at all costs, blah, blah, blah. Even though your job is to carry out the will of the American people. You are elected representatives. You are public servants. But it seems that these elected officials seem to have forgotten. They think they're leaders, not public servants. They think that they're no longer public servants put in to carry out the will of the American people. They think they're leaders that can impose their will on the American people. And we see this a little more prevalent in the Democratic Party, but it's not wholly not prevalent in the Republican Party. The Republican Party is more populist movement, and Trump does listen to a point, especially when he sees the outcomes of the follies of his mistakes. He will oftentimes course correct, but we need to get to a point where this guy and our elected officials listen to us from the gate, not after they've tried and fucked up. It's like this old saying. I've got this posted on my Facebook, and it's a shirt that says, "If at first you don't succeed, try doing what Chris told you to do the first time." And you know what? Maybe I need to make a variant of that into a shirt. Trump, if at first you don't succeed, try doing what the American people told you to do the first time. Because that's what needs to happen. We need to have our president listening to the American people. We need to have our elected officials listening to the American people and carrying out the will of the American people, because there's no other way. This has got to be a government that is of the people, by the people, for the people. And we need real Americans, real patriots, real populists in these positions of power that are going to restore the constitutional republic. And I know a lot of people want to try to argue this whole democracy versus republic. Read your history. The country was founded on the ideas of being a constitutional republic. If it were a democracy, it'd be a 50-50 vote. And whoever got the majority, 51% or better, gets the majority. Whereas a constitutional republic is where you get things like the filibuster and whatnot, which allows for a little more accountability and a little more in terms of the voting process as is required by Congress and the Senate. Instead of having a 51% or better, you have to have, I think, a 59 or 60% vote. Okay, so that is your key difference between a democratic country and a constitutional republic. Okay, this is your key difference here. But at the end of the day, we need to maintain that, and we need to reinforce that and reinforce the idea that this is a government of the people, by the people, just like the worldwide resistance is of the people, by the people. And on that note, I'm putting the turkey in the oven, ladies and gentlemen. So, this has been your episode of Tin Man TV. We will be back this Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time with the roundtable, me and Revan. Hopefully Connor will be joining us. We've been hearing a lot more from him. He's been preoccupied with family stuff, getting his daughter's dojo up and running, which is now going very well. Again, many props to him and his family's success in that regard. But we do hope to see Connor back, and maybe a few other people joining us on the roundtable as well. For quite a while it's been just me and Brevin, but it's looking to be turning around, and we'll be looking to have a few more people joining us. So it's going to be a complete roundtable, and as always, you're a part of the conversation as well. So whether it be Tin Man TV or the roundtable, feel free to join in on the conversations. So with that being said, keep the conversation going, even after this broadcast ends. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions and any new information that you have that we otherwise may have missed or just came about after the fact. And as always, follow us on our various social medias, X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, all at REALTWWRN. Check out our online store, tons of great merch. Our 4 basic food groups sale is going on right now. Those 4 shirts available for $19.99, but only for a short period. So get those now while you can. And as always, this has been Chris Sheldon with the Worldwide Resistance Network, aka the Tin Man, your white rabbit, having taken you down that goddamn rabbit hole. If you are watching this, You, my brothers and sisters, are the resistance. Stay safe out there, ladies and gentlemen. Stay strong. Never give up. And God bless you. And God be with us all. Peace.